Good morning. Thank you for joining us for today's Eggs and Issues, one of Big Sky Chamber's signature events, designed to keep our community informed and engaged with key issues impacting our region. My name is Megan Porter. I'm Vice President of the Big Sky Chamber. We are proud to serve as a convener in our community, connecting, bringing together people, resources, and ideas to tackle the challenges and opportunities facing Big Sky. Montana is an amazing state for many reasons. One of those is its unique local government review process. This process empowers voters every 10 years to assess and potentially reshape their local governmental structures through elected study commissions. It's a testament to Montana's commitment to citizen-driven governance and transparency. This morning, we're diving into the important work being undertaken by the local government study commissions with Madison and Gallatin counties. These voter-approved commissions are conducting an in-depth 2-year review of local government structure and operations. You'll hear foundational information about what these commissions can and cannot change, learn about the similarities and differences in the 2 county processes, and understand how you can participate. So thank you to our representatives for being here today to educate us and to provide us answers to our questions. Before we get started, I want to highlight 2 upcoming events for Visit Big Sky and the Chamber. First is our Visit Big Sky Marketing and Tourism Luncheon. That is Thursday, May 29th at 1 p.m. That is at Montage. Next is our annual dinner, our Black Diamond Awards dinner, Thursday, June 12th at 5 p.m. at the River House. Tickets for both are selling fast. If you would like more information, you can visit Annie at the back table or head to our website. We hope you'll join us both to learn more about the economic impacts facing our community, as well as to celebrate our business community and our leaders. Now let's dive into today's discussion.
Hi, my name is Jackie Haynes. Some of you may know me as a BizRad staff member, but in my free time, I moonlight as a local government study commissioner on Friday mornings in the Gallatin County Commission room. I want to introduce my fellow commissioners here. Brian Conklin with the Madison County Study Commission is going to talk through this presentation today. So let's kick it off and do you want to start with your folks? Yeah, so first we're going to do introductions, then we'll talk through the scope and purpose of the study, and then we'll take some public comment. We have questions to kind of get you thinking. We'll go from there. So I'm going to kick it off with the Gallatin County Study Commissioners. There are 7 of us. Today, 3 are here, and I'll talk through the rest of the group, but I'll let these gentlemen please just introduce yourself, tell us a little bit about your background and why you wanted to be a study commissioner.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Steve White. I grew up in the Valley, and I live on farmland that we've had in our family for 125 years down off Gooch Hill Road. This was my 51st consecutive year skiing Big Sky. We used to come up and on Mother's Day at Buck Ski 4 and have smorgasbord, and it was all of us up here. When I was Gallatin County Commissioner for 12 years and spent a lot of time in Big Sky and a lot of the issues that you're dealing with up here, I ran for the study commission because I love this county, love serving people, and it's a very important area, and just love the county. And it's been a great opportunity to work with Jackie and the others that are on our board.
Thanks, Steve. Jeff Krause. I think I'm chair of the local government study commission for Gallatin County. Last week I was, but I was supposed to be on a fishing trip, and besides, Jackie has a lot of credibility up here, so you turn in this meeting over to her. Yeah, so in August it'll be 50 years. I didn't come skiing at Big Sky in a horse and sleigh like Steve did, but yeah, there's a dinosaur pulling it, but it feels like that at times, and of course we've seen so many changes here in Big Sky and everywhere else, down the valley, and And I've been here for most of that, and some of that I have to say I probably enthusiastically supported. And I signed up to run for the study commission at 30 years in local government, state government, city government. As the mayor of Bozeman 3 times. I was a member of the Montana University System Board of Regents. I was the Gallatin County Treasurer, and I worked in the Treasurer's Office for 10 years. And I was on the Bozeman Study Commission for the city of Bozeman in 1994-96. And local government, as you know, other people say, well, I went skiing. I did local government. So that's kind of one of my passions. And it is the government closest to the people, and you know, those potholes are not partisan, and there is a lot of truth to that. I think the Gallatin County Commission would be telling you, you know, the weeds have to get killed and the roads have to get taken care of, and nobody feels too partisan about any of that. And that always appealed to me, and it still appeals to me today. So I'm looking at it from that point of view. Thanks to everyone who showed up to listen to us, and thank you, Jackie, for giving them something to listen to.
All right, I wanted to turn it over to the Madison County Study Commission.
Hey everyone, I'm Dustin Dutro. Been a public servant for 21 years now. For the last 7 years, as most of you know me, my role is formerly deputy fire chief and now fire chief up here in Big Sky. Also before that, I worked for Madison County as the Director of Emergency Services and Fire Warden for 3 years. And so I ran for the study commission. I felt like I had a pretty diverse perspective from one side of Madison County and then obviously all the way up to this side of Madison County. Obviously known from the Ruby Valley and the Madison Valley, and then obviously working up here for the last 7 years. And obviously I also have a passion for public administration, the public sector and government. And so yeah, I've been pretty excited. This has been a really fun process, a fun deep dive into the county government, and looking forward to some of the things that our group's been putting together. And I've got a really great group of fellow commissioners here that we've been having a really good process so far.
Hi, my name is Brian Conklin, and I'm a county commissioner as well, not a county commissioner, a local government review. Not present with us is Rhonda Boyd. So unlike Gallatin, you have 7 people on your commission. We have 3. Advantages and disadvantages. We now have a quorum, so that's our disadvantage. Background, I've spent my life mostly in public service, more than 25 years or so overseas as a foreign service officer. And then my family's been here in Madison County for about the last 8 or 9 years. So it's been great to be a part of this process and an opportunity to really get out and get to know our communities, a chance to hear from you today in particular about those issues and those concerns that affect you the most. And so that's something that we really want to be sensitive to. All right, Jackie, I'll turn it back to you.
Great. Okay, so we're just going to talk through the scope of the local government review, what we can do and what we cannot do. But before we kick it off, what I want to do is really denote for this audience specifically, this is a very different process than the local government study that is being done by WGM concerning and regarding the governing options for Big Sky community itself, right? Like the incorporation study is what you guys know it as. This is very different. The Local Government Study Commission is super cool. We are the only state in the nation that our 1972 Constitution requires the Local Government Study Commission to be on the ballot every 10 years. The voters decide, do we want to study our form of local government, make improvements to it? And then you stand up a citizen elected study commission. And so the 1972 Constitution Convention, the delegates decided that Montana needed to be able to be flexible in the forms of local government and be responsive to the needs of the citizens. And so this, I think, this is one of the reasons why I love Montana. There's lots of reasons, but this is the coolest thing. I mean, I think we can all admit that our federal government could use a local government review and some changes made and recommendations. And so we get to do this at every level of our local government. So if you live in a city limits, you would have voted twice on this issue. You would have voted for a city study commission and a county study commission. So if you live in Bozeman, there are two. There is a Bozeman study commission going on right now. West Yellowstone has one that stood up. Ennis has one that stood up. Sheridan, Virginia City. Okay. So there's multiple study commissions going on. The scope will apply to all of the study commissions. The options will be different. And so the purpose of the study commission is to look at the existing form and function of the government, the powers of the government, and then compare them with other forms that are available to us in law. Do you have anything you want to add to that? Okay, next slide.
So there's a couple of things that the study commission can do and not do. A lot of what we're here to do is just basically to look at the existing form of government and make any kinds of, and then to go out and to listen. Is the form of government working? What's amazing about the Montana Constitution is they took into the account that the world is changing rapidly and that the form of government you had at the time may have been the perfect solution for what you have, but as things change, the ability to kind of refresh and try options. And the great thing about this is you'll notice that over the last, how many years have we been doing this? 30, 40 years. A lot of governments have tweaked. They've tried one thing and then, well, this little part here, we could do this a little bit better. And so 10 years later, they came back and made changes. But some of the things that we could look at, for example, are the number of commissioners. In Madison County, we have 3. In Gallatin County,
There's 3.
there's 3.
Well, we could go to 5 if that was something that we wanted to do.
Right, I think we could go to, there's 17 of them in Butte Silver Bow,
In the consolidated city
Yeah.
county, okay.
which they've decided now is an untenable number. So I have a feeling that'll come down a little bit. Obviously, that means that we could look for comparable solutions for Big Sky. What kind of representation does the county need to have to fully represent all aspects of the county? So that's something that we want to be very sensitive to. Elections can be held by wards. They can be held at large. They can be partisan or nonpartisan. In Madison County, we're nonpartisan.
In Gallatin County, we are partisan.
And are you guys by ward or at large?
Yeah,
At large.
from a district,
Qualified by district, vote by large.
qualified by district, voted at large.
Okay, and so for us, we're simply by district, and you can only vote by district. And so these things can change, they can be altered, we can look at them. Terms of office can be concurrent, they can be overlapping. We're gonna get into some of the different options of forms of government, but there's essentially 5 forms of government plus a charter, which could be a combination of all 5, essentially. And so for most of us, I know that we've defaulted to what the state constitution allows us to have, which is just basically 3 commissioners. And those commissioners represent both the legislative side of the work that we do in Madison County, and they represent the executive. So they do both the legislative and executive, which means that not only do they think about the policies and the issues that are affecting us, but then they're also burdened with having to manage the county, having to manage employees, how to figure out how many vehicles the sheriff's department needs. So it's for us, we have a combined executive and legislative, and I assume it's the same thing in Gallatin. Gallatin's a little different.
Yeah, so Gallatin has the 3 commissioners with then a county administrator and deputy administrator. And so essentially, high level, the study commission is looking at the balance of, we know the 3 branches of government, right? Judicial, legislative, and executive. And the study commission is looking at the balance of the legislative and the executive branches. And we have these different forms of government that play with the balance of power between the legislative and the executive. And for those of you that need a little refresher, the legislative branch is the branch that makes the policy that governs our lives, and the executive branch is the branch that executes on those policies.
We're gonna talk through in the next few slides, some of the issues that we'll be considering, but at the end of the day, there are certain things that we're allowed to do and that are within our scope. And Jackie's gonna hit some of the things that we're not here to do.
But one thing I want to note before we go to what we're not allowed to do is you can see here, one of the recommendations we can make is to consolidate departments or the government. So you see Butte Silverbow has a consolidated city-county government. So that is government together. What we cannot do, and this is applicable to Big Sky, is we cannot make a recommendation to create a new county or to create a new entity. We can consolidate entities, and the commissions can also make recommendations to disincorporate. So maybe there is a city that had an official form of government that now has become a ghost town. You can disincorporate that government. Things we cannot do is we're not doing performance reviews of the elected officials. We're not looking at taxes and the structure of taxes. We're not making decisions around fees and assessments. We're not changing the county's policies. So if you don't like the zoning law, that's not our purview. And so that's kind of the limit of the scope of what we're doing.
Yeah, it's interesting to note that while we'll go through a list of the kinds of things that people could choose as options and how they can shape their government, one of the things that Jackie referred to is that we could make some recommendations on consolidation. But those recommendations we make, for example, if we wanted to consolidate services with the fire department or different things, are simply a recommendation that we make to the county commissioners, and that does not go on the ballot. So the only things going on the ballot are the shape or the form of the government that you have. And we're going to get into a couple of those forms.
Yeah, the structural changes. Yeah. So next slide, please.
So one of the first issues at stake is the idea of general versus self-governing powers. Right now, general powers basically means that every county can only do what the state legislature allows them to do, and it's got to be kind of written specifically. So if there's a certain problem that you're trying to solve, and it isn't specifically addressed in the state legislature, your county commissioners cannot address that. They're really limited to only what the state legislature says they can do. For example, if you had a state road coming through your town on a particular curve and the speed limit was 40 miles an hour, and you all decided it's a little bit dangerous, we want to knock that down to 20 miles an hour. If you have general powers, you can't do that. You are only allowed to do with what you're allowed to do that the state legislature allows you to do. The other option that voters can click this year is to vote for self-governing powers. And we're noticing that across the state of Montana, that a lot of the legislative powers that used to be available locally are kind of getting absorbed and pulled into the state government. And so I think there's going to be a movement this year where you're going to see a lot of counties that elect for self-governing powers. And all that self-governing powers allow you to do is you can basically do anything unless it's prohibited or goes against the existing statutes that are at the state level. I don't know if you want to add to that.
So the city of Bozeman is an example of a government that has self-governing powers. They have a charter. And you can, if you follow issues between the city and the legislature really closely, you can see that balance of power at play, right? Like an example right now is in the last election, the city of Bozeman passed an ordinance banning styrofoam, right? And then the state legislature talked about that this year. And so you can see that, and you can see that balance and that play go on. And when you're in the general governing powers, which is where our county sits at, from my perspective, that really empowers state legislators. That means you need to be really paying close attention to who your state representatives are, because they're making a lot of decisions about what the local government is doing in your life. And so there is definite pros and cons to both, right? Like there's some of us that might say, no, we want our local government really limited in what they can do. And so when you reach out to your county commissioner and say, hey, can you fix this thing? Most likely, most of the time, their answer is gonna be no, because we live in the general governing powers realm. And then some people say, hey, we want our local government to be more empowered because it's more accessible to me, right? Like I can go to a city commission meeting and give public comment and say, don't do this thing, where it's harder to access the state legislator. So there is definite things to think about when you're thinking about this dance power and where it belongs and who belongs to it.
And I'll just add to that, by having self-governing powers, it allows you to be a lot more creative. Each of our communities across the state of Montana are unique and different. And so by staying in the general governing powers, there's this idea that one size fits all versus self-governing powers allows you to be more adaptive. So I think that gives you some kind of idea what that difference is. And I know people get a little excited when we talk about the word power and what that implies, but basically it's just your ability to do a little bit more and to solve problems. So that'll be one of the issues. And depending on what the voters vote for, if you move to self-governing powers, we have these 5 forms of government that I mentioned earlier. Those become, you're no longer selecting one of those 5 forms of government. You are now writing your own charter, and your charter will draw from any aspect of those 5 forms of government that you like. So with self-governing powers, you move to a charter, and with a charter, we can write this from scratch. What do we as a community want it to look like? What are the responsibilities? How are things delegated out? We're going to get into that in just a moment.
So I might have been remiss and I should have added a form of government slide here. And so we're gonna riff and just talk about the different forms of government that Brian was mentioning. So when you stay in the general powers, you don't change the powers of the government. You have 5 options available to you. And the form of the government is that balance of power between the executive and the legislative, right? So one of the forms is a commission executive form, which has an elected mayor. And that's just an example of that. Once that mayor is elected, they act as a commissioner. And then another form is a commission manager form where you have all of your commissioners that are elected and then they hire a manager. And so then that manager reports to the commission and is managed by the commission.
The default is what we have right now in Madison County, which is just simply 3 county commissioners that do both the executive and legislative. There's no manager component. So let me just go back. If you can either have that, which is what we have in Madison County right now, we could have an elected executive who takes over the executive side of the form of government, and the county commissioners only do the legislative side. And in a sense, they're equal because they've both been elected. Your executive has been elected, and your county commissioners have been elected. The manager form of government really allows the county commissioners to hire a manager and delegate whatever responsibilities that they would like to delegate to that manager. That means rather than just hiring somebody and expecting that they have all the skills that they need to be a city manager or county manager, really what you're doing is you're going to hire somebody specifically who has those qualities and criteria, and that person can be fired at any time if they're not doing the job that they're supposed to be doing. So that kind of gives you an idea of kind of the 3 major forms of government. There are 2 other forms of government that don't necessarily apply. One of them is a town meeting form. If you can imagine, there is one community that has that. It requires, every time you want to make a decision, it requires 10% of the population to show up together in a room and caucus and make a decision. Yes, that exists in Montana.
It's more of like a policy form. It's more of a direct democracy kind of form. So it brings all the town together. It's interesting.
And then the last form that also, that actually could apply, we'll see it right now in Virginia City, is they have a presiding officer. So they have a group of elected officials, and then they select among themselves one of those people to be kind of the executive out of that group of elected. It's called a presiding officer form. So there's these different options, and normally whichever option a county chooses, then there's a bunch of sub options that come into play. What we want to do is go back to this idea that if you choose to stay within general governing powers, you're going to pick one of those forms of government. And then you're going to go through the options that are allowed under that. But if you go to self-governing powers, well, now we can just write a charter and we can say, we like an aspect of this form of government, we like an aspect of this form of government. We want to limit the ability of our executive to do X, Y, and Z. We want to create a veto power among our county commissioners versus anything that the executive does. Or we want the executive to have the veto power over the county commissioners. All those things can be written into a charter and allow you to adapt to your specific interest in form of government.
And the charter form of government is governed by law, so it's not just like whatever you want. But a lot of times when communities adopt a charter form, they will start with a different form, with an existing form of government, kind of copy paste and then edit from there, right? And so-
Yeah, and this makes a good point. In Madison County, we could opt to go to self-governing powers and not change anything. Leave the existing form the exact way it is. It's just that we now have to write that existing form into a charter. It's kind of a nuance of the law that says if you have self-governing powers, you must have a charter. But then again, our charter could look like exactly what we have. That makes sense.
Okay, so we're gonna give you some examples of this because it's like, what does it mean? First, I'll talk through the general timeline. Every study commission is required by law to publish a timeline, and we've done that, but generally, we're all moving towards the same goal. So what we have the ability to do is make recommendations to put on the ballot. We don't make direct changes. We make recommendations that go to the voters and they decide, you will see this on your ballot in November of 2026. And so our general timeline is we're working to finish our study towards the summer of 2026. We'll have public review, public comment. They'll go to the commission, they'll notice it, and then the commission approves to put it on the ballot. And so that's just generally the timeline.
Have you held your first big public meeting yet?
We held our first public hearing. There is required by law, there's a series of public hearings that we're gonna do. The Gallatin County Commission, what we're doing is we're gonna work through the spring to interview elected officials and department heads within the county. And then late summer, fall, we're gonna be doing all of our public engagement throughout the county. We're gonna have a survey that we're gonna send out, so keep your eyes open for that. And then in the spring of 26, we're gonna start working through all of that data collection and that information and working towards the discussion of recommendations of these changes.
Most of the county commissions are on the same timeline. We had our public hearing on tax day, April 15th. We had an opportunity to kind of share a little bit about who we are and what this is and how we'd like to proceed. And then, so that's required by law, but we'll be following a very similar process. We'll be doing interviews of elected and government officials in departments, and then we'll be moving into public hearings in as many places as we can. We'd also like to do meetings jointly with the cities that are in our county that are also going through a look at that. So Ennis, Virginia City, Sheridan have their own commissions, and we'd like to do a joint commission.
And conversely, we will be doing the same with the West Yellowstone Study Commission and the City of Bozeman Study Commission in Gallatin County. And this is our first foray into a joint hearing together with Madison County, and I'm sure we'll do probably one or two more.
Sorry, I just wanted to touch on two. One of the other things that comes out of this is there's actually a report that gets made. So there, our group, prior to, at least for our timeline, we're gonna try to have early 2026, have that report done. And so once we start to get ballot initiatives out, that report's available as well. And so that people can look at that report and look through the recommendations, because we're not here to advocate, right? We're just making recommendations based off what we're hearing from the listening sessions. And if there is service consolidations and things like that that we put in that report, we want to make sure that people are educated on how we got to that was included in the report. And so that's another critical piece of this, other than the ballot initiatives as well.
So, and we'd also like to have a joint meeting with you, Gallatin County. So we'll work on that. I want to go back to what Dustin is saying. The first half of this is really a listening exercise where we take your feedback, and then we'll try to draft that into this report that Dustin referred to. A large part of this is spending time with that report and validating that across the county, allowing people to have an opportunity to become familiar and weighing with things. We all know that we can all come up with what we think are brilliant ideas, and we put it on the ballot, and it goes nowhere because people haven't felt like they've had the opportunity to fully vet it, to fully understand it. So we know as a county commission, for this government study review, that we need as much time to allow people to sit with this, to understand how we came to these particular recommendations, and to have a sense of shared ownership over what's happening long before we go into the ballot.
And this is really important that you and your friends in your community participate in, because local government really changes our lives in ways that we don't always see. A state legislator once said, and I love this, and this is part of why I ran for study commission. He said, local government is affected 80% of the time, state government is affected 50% of the time, and the federal government is affected 20% of the time. And I think it's just illustrative of how important and impactful local government is in our lives. And if you feel pinch points, this is the time to get involved. This is the time to give your feedback. This is the time to be paying attention and really caring about these discussions that we're having.
And I'll just add to what Jackie said. We need to look at what the counties are going to need 10 years from now. Where are we going to be? What kind of challenges are we going to be facing? Kinds of growth, kinds of issues that are going to be out there, and how do we prepare ourselves in a forward-looking fashion to have that form of government that's best going to represent and serve us into the next 10 years. And we've seen how radically and how quickly things have changed in the last 10 years. So it's just something to think about as we want to be as forward-looking as possible, and really lay the foundation for what the next 10 or 20 years will look like.
Okay, I think we can go to the next slide. The next couple slides are going to be specific to the different county governments.
So a lot on this slide, but let me just hit it in a nutshell. We have 3 commissioners, we have nonpartisan elections, we're districted, we have 4-year terms, and we do not have self-governing powers. Our last, in Madison County, the last time we did this was 1996. That gives you an idea. It's been a bit of a delay since we modified or looked at an existing form of government. The interesting thing about Madison County is there was a point where we did have an executive, an elected executive. Apparently that didn't work out very well because it just kind of disappeared. I don't even know that we voted to remove that position. Dustin and I were looking at that today. So we don't have an executive form of government right now. I'm not really sure how we got there, but I think a lot of these experiences that people have in the past kind of color what they'd like to do going forward. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much what we have. Our county commissioners and Ron, and I've got Bill in the back there. Just check me if I'm wrong, but you guys basically manage every aspect of that county. How do you decide who's in charge of the sheriff's department issues versus HR issues? Yeah, you have managerial control over the budget.
That's it.
Yeah, but with regard to specific issues within the county, it's pretty much whoever comes to whoever, right?
Well, generally we have meetings that appropriate notice that.
Yeah. Anyway, so this is our current form of government, and we'll pause right there if you have any questions on Madison's form of government. Madison County's form of government. Okay. Can you go to the next slide? So those changes in 1996, those are the ones in the top right column. You pretty much see where we've gone. I know this looks like Greek because of all the acronyms that are in there or the abbreviations that are in there. But essentially, it's what I've laid out, that in we had this default form of government. We had an executive in 1981. We went to the executive. We defaulted back in 1986 to this current form of government that we have. And then we've made some minor changes. In 1996, we went from partisan to nonpartisan. You can see actually what the vote tallies were. We went from, we decided to be elected by district, and we went to 4-year terms versus 6-year terms. It's For us, with 3 county commissioners, that means every there's a point where we have 2 county commissioners that are up for election at the same time. But all that can change. It can look exactly with what you'd like it to look at. Number of years, number of commissioners, how those terms are laid out.
And there's pros and cons to that too, right? Like, Madison County has 4-year terms, so 2 commissioners fall off every 12 years. And so is it every 12? So you lose the institutional knowledge, but your terms are shorter. So there's pros and cons to that. Next, are you done with this?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Gallatin County form of government, very similar, but we have 6-year terms. The commissioners are nominated by district and then elected at large. And you can see then the elected official roles. Commissioner Todd was hinting to that. The sheriff is elected, so it's not a hireable and fireable position. And that's an example of one of the changes that we can make. So for example, the Gallatin County treasurer is elected. And one of the discussions I think that we're gonna probably have is, should this be a hired position? Because you're overseeing property taxes and you need to be able to make sure that that person has experience managing property taxes and things like that. Another example is the coroner, and you'll see that in a second on the 1996 recommendations. The coroner needs to have medical knowledge before they pronounce someone dead. So it's different, understanding these different roles, what they are doing for our local government, and what are the qualifications and experience that we want to require these positions to have in their role. Next slide. The next slide is just an example of the organizational structure of Gallatin County. So you can kind of see the department heads that report to the county administrator and the deputy county administrator, and then the elected officials that stand on their own because they're responsible to the voters instead of the county commissioners and the county administrator. So next slide. This is a history of the Gallatin County elections. This is a great example. You can see we had the default form of government, and then in 1996, we tried to change our form of government because we wanted to we wanted to decide whether we wanted to nominate or be elected by the district. We wanted to decide whether we wanted to elect or appoint the surveyor, and we wanted to decide whether to elect or appoint the coroner. And you can see appointing the surveyor and appointing the coroner passed, but we didn't make the structural changes because the overall form of the structure of government didn't pass. And so you can see the ECOF form is that default, the elected commissioner, I don't know what the acronym stands for. And then the commission form that we wanted to change to, it didn't pass. So none of those structural changes passed. So when we get to a point where we're making recommendations, it's important that you and your friends are paying attention to the nuances and the details of this, because that form of government really matters. All right, next slide. These are our regular meetings. If you all want to attend, Gallatin County has a virtual option. I'm not sure if you guys have a virtual option.
We have thought about moving to a virtual option, but not yet. Our stuff hasn't been that exciting.
I mean, ours isn't terribly exciting either, but it's fun for us.
Let me just say that we do meet the first Wednesday of each month, as it's stated up there. But Dustin made this amazing flyer, and we have some of them back. And in that flyer kind of lays out a lot of what we've talked about today, but it lays specifically our timeline out in more detail and the kinds of things that we're looking at. So I just encourage you, if you have any questions, please pick up a flyer on your way out. And then important on that, and we're going to get there, is on the back is a QR code. And that's where you can weigh in with your feedback on a survey where we'd like to hear from all of you. And particularly here in Big Sky, where we have a mixture of people from both Madison County and Gallatin County. But I think the issues that you're facing are very, very, well, it's exactly the same issues. So not necessarily required to be a county resident to take the survey, but particularly from Big Sky, we would like to hear from all of you. So if you have an opportunity to fill out our survey, please do scan it and please send us your feedback. We will also be making a concerted effort to come up here and to spend time with you and to hear from you personally in more detail about the kinds of challenges and issues that you're facing and the forms of government that might best fit and adapt to what your needs are.
And Gallatin County will have a survey too, but Madison County Commissioner are rocking and they're getting their stuff done. So they're ahead of us a little bit. Survey.
There's fewer of us to discuss.
So we have about 10 minutes left. We want to open it up to you all for questions about the form of government, pros and cons, and we'll do our best to try and answer. Dan Clark was slated to be here and then couldn't make it. He's the expert from MSU Local Government Center, but we will do our best we have a ton of knowledge in the room. But we also like to open it up for public feedback. So these are a few questions for you to consider. What's working, what's not. This is the time you have study commissioners from both sides here that would love to hear from you and hear your feedback. And so keep it short, concise. We have 10 minutes and want to get through everybody if there's a lot of thoughts to share, but want to open it up to the floor.
Thank you. That was very informative. I have a question for Chief Tetrall, but then I'm also putting Commissioner White on notice that the same question is going to be for him. Good to see you, by the way. Chief Tetrall, as a longtime employee in Big Sky, I'm curious, what perspective are you bringing to the Madison County Study Commission? What ideas do you have and recommendations that would improve the lives of the residents of the Big Sky community?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest things is for us is listening, obviously. And in our first public hearing that we had down there, obviously we didn't have anybody specifically from Big Sky at that public hearing, but we had a lot of people from Ennis, Virginia City, Sheridan. And it was interesting to listen to them because one of the things that came up is representation for Big Sky. You know, that's something that we hear up here all the time from our group, right? We don't necessarily hear it from down there, but I think that the message is out that we as Big Sky want representation in Madison County, and that in our survey too. We kind of looked at the survey data today. That's another one that's popped up in our survey data too. And we're geolocating those by zip code, and there's not a lot of those surveys that have come in from up here. So those are coming from down there, which is really interesting. And we've been looking a lot, deep diving into the 3 versus 5 commissioners and what the districting looks like too. You know, one of the things that I don't know if you touched on in your talk with the districting that we found out is that they have to be equal size, land size and population size. And so that redistricting is really, really tough. And even if you talked about Big Sky specifically getting a commissioner, it still doesn't quite work because the redistricting still would need to push down probably into the Madison Valley in order to pick up the population and the size in order to get that. But that's something that we are looking at. And then also something that we're looking at too is there options for having district voted commissioners and at-large commissioners as well. I don't know, we haven't gotten anything back on if you can mix and match those or not. But that definitely is something that we're looking at very closely for more representation specifically to Big Sky.
We're in a unique county situation, right? Our geography, the mountain between Madison County and the part of Madison County that's in Big Sky. This is where we would like to get together with the experts at Montana State University and really look within the boundaries of the law. You know, where can we adapt these forms of government to provide as much representation as possible from Big Sky. We're going to be frank about the fact that our county runs on funding largely coming from Big Sky. I think you represent about 80% of our total budget. And so having representation, we realize, is something that's critically important because when people don't have a voice, that's when we begin to see a lot of a lot of the things that are happening now with the hospital district and these other things, because people are looking for a solution that works. If they can't get that solution from their local elected government officials, they'll look for other ways. And I think we're looking for a way to be as inclusive and incorporate a say and a voice as much as possible. And we think this is critically important. And I think if you surveyed most of the county in Madison County, I think people would also acknowledge that as being critically important.
What was that question?
Can I address specifically Madison County's answer? Thanks. Thank you very much. I am a relatively new Madison County resident, since 2022, the end of 2022. First moved to Montana in '93, and I was a county resident in Madison County, when I lived in employee housing at the resort, and to register my car over there. And when you said you don't have virtual meetings, it hit me. To go to a commission meeting, I have to drive way around. What if I could ask you guys to make a petition to the landowners of that road to allow us to go through 4 commission-related issues?
I have never had a problem having a free pass and access to the road for official purposes like this. So I can't answer that question directly, but I'll just say that coming up to this meeting today, I really came up as just kind of Brian, the guy from Madison County that would like to attend this meeting. I didn't say much more than that, and I was granted permission to use the road for this particular meeting. So one thing I'll say is that my experience has been working here with powers that be that control that road is that they've been very generous in allowing those kinds of things. I think what they're trying to discourage is, all the other uses of that road that are not related to our work as citizens and the work of government. But I think you raise a great point. There's no reason why. I mean, absolutely everything we do should be virtual as well, because we're eliminating people just by not doing that. So we're taking notes and we'll make that change.
It's more of an AV issue right now. So, because we're kind of like quasi-government entity working down there, but we don't have access to the some of the AV components there. So it kind of comes back on us if we want to be able to do that. And it's something that we're going to work on getting as we get more into the nuts and bolts of this process.
I'll repeat the question.
It's great to see you.
It's good to see you as well. Hey, you represented us for 12 years and did a fantastic job representing the Big Sky community. I believe that was the last time. Well, let me back up. You had you at least had one foot in our community for a long time. That was the great voice to have on the county commission. And so I was curious, with your long history with Big Sky, what perspective, or with that perspective, what ideas and recommendations may you bring to the study commission that would potentially improve the lives of Big Sky residents?
Big Sky is a unique place because I'm not sure who lives here. And but in a general sense, because we don't, when I was a commissioner, the one thing I was very impressed with was the attendance of any of the issues that were related to Big Sky coming down to the courthouse. And I miss Steve Johnson greatly. And you have great representation that comes down to the courthouse. The thing I think that is really important is engagement. And that's the thing that we focus on. And I think it's really important for us to have that online presence, and that there's probably a lot of Big Sky folks that are tuned in to what's going on in the courthouse. There's some things that we're going to be discussing, and I'm interested to hear from the Big Sky family community about, whether there should be elections by districts. Right now, there's one commissioner that has to live in this district where Big Sky and where West Yellowstone is to qualify to be nominated to even run to be a county commissioner. But the entire county votes on that individual. And so is there a possibility, is there interest that maybe it would be by district? And the nonpartisan issue, that's something I think we'll probably hear about too. But Gallatin County is very unique. It has 5 incorporated cities. And I don't know if there's any other counties around that have that. When we talk about charter form of government and general powers, it's very interesting because the majority of the cities in Montana have charter form of government. But of the 56 counties, you've only got, I think it's about 5 counties that have charter form. So it's kind of reversed. So most of the counties in the state have general powers, and that just basically means they have to live under the rules and the regulations that the legislature puts into the NCA. So I guess the biggest answer is going to be just how well the suggestions being given to the citizens for voting in 2026, are those going to be improvements to services and for the engagement of citizens with Gallatin County, and not just the county commissioners, but you've got the sheriff and you've got all of the elected officials in Gallatin County. And if we go nonpartisan, if that were to be a suggestion, that would be for probably all of the elected officials. So, but I think the big thing is, and it's really only a county commission issue, that is, should it be by district? It's very unique. Madison County it's very unique to be here with Madison County because, as Jackie explained, they really have gone. If you want to see what can you do to be different than Gallatin County, Madison County has done it, and it's very interesting. Then you have Ravalli County, that smaller county, but they have I think 44 zoning districts. So Gallatin County has 22. But they went to 5 county commissioners, and they had 3. They went to 5, the only county that had 5. And it wasn't too long after that, they went back to 3 because they said, oh, this isn't working. And so that would be another thing that would be on the plate too. So if you had 5, if you can imagine 5 county commissioners, and then you had, if you went by district, you'd have to carve up the county into 5 districts, and it's carved up by population. And that's every 10 years when the census come out, you examine what is the population of the county, and with the quick recorder, then they create some district lines, and it has to be equal population within, I think, 3%. So, but Kevin, that's kind of a roundabout answer to your question, but those are the kind of things. It's interesting. You come here and you want to hear what we've got to say, and say, well, I've got some issues with zoning or whatever. Like Jackie said, no, that's not our deal. No, so finally you get down to the bottom and says, what is your deal? Well, our deal is these other things, and it's a limited list, but it's dictated by 70 constitution. There you go. So, I hope that answered your question.
All right, so we have time. Let's do one more question or comment. Anything burning in the audience? Jay, I think next slide has, if you think of stuff, you can email us. There's a general email for both of the county commissioners. And then don't forget the survey for Madison County. Go ahead and take that, you guys. It's really short. I think I might have taken it. You can scan it and do it right now. So feel free to reach out to us. We take written comment. If you email these emails, it'll go to all the study commissioners. So everyone will be able to see your comments, and we'll add in any of your thoughts to our data that we use to guide our report.
And I just want to thank you for allowing us to spend a little time with you this morning and take up the time that we have. We are genuinely interested in having your feedback, involvement, and participation. And we'll keep saying it, but then we're going to start showing up as well. And so we've got this year to spend some time together to find out how can we best represent the interests and the needs of the Big Sky community with regard to our government review. So this is critically important, and very grateful for the opportunity to at least introduce ourselves and let you know that we're here and that we'd like to hear from you.
Okay, we're gonna do a 5-minute recess. We're gonna reset the room, so take this moment to refill your coffee, and use the restroom, and then we're gonna kick off the joint county commission